Welcome to the Calm Cockpit. Today's show is a must-listen for anyone who's ever wondered how to balance a high-stress, high-time demand of an aviation lifestyle with their health and fitness goals. We'll share a conversation with Lashae Bacon, founder of Mile High Health Club, who will share strategies specifically designed to support pilots with tailored fitness and nutrition programs.
Our conversation covers everything from how to figure out what to eat while traveling, the best strategies for staying fit with a busy schedule, and how to choose supplements that actually make a difference. If you've ever skipped a meal on a long haul, struggled to stay consistent with workouts, or wanted to fine-tune your fitness and nutrition, this episode is for you.
Whether you're tuning in from the left seat of a Cessna, the jump seat of a jet, or just listening while walking the dog, we're glad you're here. The Calm Cockpit podcast starts now.
Onyx 12 Mike Oscar, runway 27, clear for takeoff.
Hi, everyone. I'm Geeta Brown, midlife student pilot and licensed yoga and music educator with over 30 years of experience teaching high performers how to improve their lives without adding stress.
And I'm John Niehaus, corporate pilot and professional flight instructor.
If you are new to the podcast, welcome on board. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you've been with us for a while, even though we're a newbie podcast, thank you so much for being part of this growing community of pilots, because we really care about not just how we fly, but how we feel when we fly and those great outcomes that we're all looking for, which is another focus for us today. We're talking nutrition, and we're going to sprinkle a little bit of fitness in there as well. In a little bit, we're going to share an interview we did with Lashae Bacon, who's the founder of Mile High Health Club. And she focuses on creating fitness and nutrition programs for pilots. And as always with our interviews, afterwards, John and I will meet back up to give you the key takeaways from the interview so you can really start dialing in today with some strategies for yourself. Tammy Barlett, who was featured in episode 3, she did that episode on mental performance training for aviators. Highly recommend if you haven't listened to that, check out her work. But she suggested, hey, I think Lashae would be a great fit for your podcast. And John and I have been just so happy with that introduction and already are planning on looping Lashae back for more. She graduated from college, then she served as a helicopter pilot in the U.S. Army for 8 years. She flew all kinds of really cool helicopters, including the Apache and the Kiowa, and she was a warrant officer in the Army.
Now a civilian, Lashae has decided to greet the skies with another approach: airplanes. She's branching into fixed-wing aircraft to become a more well-rounded pilot and strengthen her craft for herself and her business, the Mile High Health Club. Also a certified personal trainer and nutrition specialist, going on 11 years of experience, she built Mile High Health Club to combine her passions for health and aviation. In an effort to create a healthier, more capable, and safer aviation community, she builds fitness and nutrition programs for pilots, as well as does workshops for flight schools and aviation companies. You can also find her on the public speaking circuit because she participates in various events and talks about pilot health, and is also currently building a course on aviator health for pilots and flight crews.
She is a woman who walks the walk and talks the talk. I think when we first chatted with her, she had already done like a month-long tour of some different speaking events. She's phenomenal, and we're so excited to bring her right to you without needing to travel anywhere. So let's give a listen to our chat with Lashae, and we'll see you at the end of the interview.
Lashae, welcome to the Calm Cockpit.
It is wonderful to be here. I love that you guys started this podcast.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and we're so happy to have you. And I think that what we're going to talk about today is just something so pertinent because, frankly, as a pilot myself, I ignore so much of the important things that you're probably about to tell me. So there's so much room for improvement that I will be listening on bated breath. So it's wonderful to have you.
If it helps, you're not the only one. So
Let's talk about that a little bit. So we already did a little bit of an introduction in terms of your background and your aviation experience, but how did this drive to kind of create a company that focuses on nutrition and exercise specifically for pilots? How did you come up with this idea, and what made you decide that this was the place you wanted to be?
Yeah, it's a kind of a two-part answer. So when I was in the Army, I was in during COVID, like through the whole stint of COVID. So that was also my planning phase of what I wanted to do when I got out of the Army. And so I knew I wanted to do something within health and fitness, nutrition. Well, not even nutrition at the time. I just kind of thought fitness. And I started getting my personal trainer certificate during COVID when we were all locked down there at the beginning stages. As I was going through that, I got really interested in some of like the microbiology of what our body is doing with the nutrients that we need in order to go through our strength training regimens. And that's when I was like, I really like this nutrition aspect of things as well. And so I was like, I'm going to become a nutrition specialist. And so I did that. And whenever I did get out of the Army, about a year and a half ago now, I started flying again and fixed wing this time. So I was flying with my CFI one day, and he would jokingly talk about like his weight or his eating habits, but not jokingly at the same time, because he knew I was a personal trainer and he knew that his habits were not great by any stretch of the means. It just clicked to me one day. I was like, this is what I have to do. This is it. I have to help pilots and like my community to become a healthier, safer version of themselves. And so that's when I started putting together my programs, both fitness and nutrition programs. They're all workouts that I've done throughout my own aviation career, or maybe some of my buddies have even done with me on deployments and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually started building them into actual programs instead of random exercises. And I came up with the 4 different fitness programs, 4 different nutrition programs to start with. And I've just kept going from there.
So, of course, I want to hear about these programs, but I have a very, very, very important question for you. And are you trying to tell me that Mountain Dew and pizza is not a proper pilot nutrition? Because
Ooh.
I really missed a memo.
When did Mountain Dew become a thing again? Like, did it ever go away? I don't know, but
I think it sounds more about the Red Bull, right? I think it's Red Bull is the thing that's been getting you through, right?
I mean, I wouldn't say no.
I think I have proof on previous recordings that is actually a thing.
I had a mentor pilot of mine who used to claim that occasionally, for desperate times, he would make coffee using Red Bull instead of water. These are all healthy things, right, Lashae?
Yeah, the more caffeine you can pack in to your system, then you become inevitably untouchable. Yeah, like you don't require any sleep whatsoever.
So let's talk about these programs. What you said you've got 4 different exercise programs and 4 different nutritional programs. So what do these look like, and what are the benefits of them?
My 4 fitness programs. My first one is called functional movement. It is all body weight movements. There's no weights that you need to have. It's just yourself. A mat if you want it, rug, carpet, whatever. And I built this one largely because of hotel traveling, people who need more of that functional movement, more mobility, flexibility in their routines. So this is one that you can run on its own. It's a 6-week program, or you can run it in conjunction with another program, like another one of the Mile High Health Club programs, or maybe another program that you have as well. The way I built it was it's a combination of movements of like strength yoga, bar, and then like long hold stretches. So that one is fantastic for sedentary careers because we sit in the same position for a long period of time, but also with the vibrations that we get from our aircraft that we're in, it can cause some damage to the spine as well. So making sure that we have mobility and that we're actually exercising some of those deeper tissues in the hips, it's really important to be able to do so, especially as we age. Mobility is one of the first things to go as we age because a lot of us, I'm going to include myself in this, tend to neglect the stretches, right? So this will help a lot with that. My other program, which I just completed, is my dumbbell program. It's an 8-week program, and I built it because again, hotel traveling, maybe even at home gymmers, they'll tend to have kind of the bare minimum types of equipment, a lot of people. So most places have dumbbells. And I just hit 3 aviation conferences in the last 2 months. It was exactly 8 weeks long. So I was like, I need structure going into all this traveling. So I started my dumbbell program and I am super happy with everything it gave me. I wasn't doing any kind of a calorie deficit or anything like that while I was doing it. My body recomposition, so I lost fat, but I gained muscle. Beautiful. Exactly what I wanted out of this program. And it did just that. My next program is a resistance band program. Exactly what it sounds like. It's resistance bands only. So super easy to travel with. Also 6 weeks. So nothing super crazy long. But if you are traveling for a good amount of time within a month or so, it's a great program to bring with you. And then kettlebell program is the program I'm running now, my day 3. And it's a tough one. I'm not going to lie. Kettlebells only, of course. So that one's probably the most challenging program for sure. Also an 8-week program. My nutrition programs are 15 recipes in each program. And I also have educational things in there. In all programs, I have educational materials in them. But my nutrition program I also have in there how to calculate your macros. What are macros? Maybe some suggestion as to macros to try out for yourself. Because I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist. I'm a nutrition specialist. And so I can't tell people, and neither can anyone who's not a nutritionist or dietitian, tell you what to eat. But I can make recommendations based off of scientific research, things that I've seen work for myself and other people, and just make recommendations based off those things. That's really important for pilots is to have options because we're working in multiple different kinds of environments. I came from an aviation background. We were working in multiple different types of environments. Like we would be at home for a little bit, then we would be in the field for extended periods of time, flying cross countries for 3-4 days at a time. So I already knew that the flexibility is super important with the variety of environments that pilots find themselves in. And so that's exactly how I built all my stuff.
That's really cool. And I, as a pilot myself and someone who travels and tries to somewhat keep exercise, all joking aside, it is tough when you're in a hotel or you've just flown all day and the last thing you want to do is do anything additional besides go to sleep. So I absolutely get it and appreciate that you're willing to tackle that sort of thing. And I think exercise is a whole episode in and of itself. And I know Geeta and I have talked about it already a little bit. But I think part of what we talked about in our sort of get to know you conversation was just exercise is something, while a lot of people don't get it or do it properly, at least people understand the necessity for it, of course.
Right.
What really people struggle with and sort of is this cloud of mystery is the idea of nutrition and how you have to have both to properly be fit as a human being. And so focusing a little bit on the nutrition side, maybe we can kind of educate some of our listeners on what that looks like and what exactly is nutrition as a whole. So as a pilot, what does nutrition look like for me? Somebody who flies and might spend hours and hours just kind of sitting in a cockpit and spends a lot of time either with meals on the airplane or on the road, and now you're forced to eat out. Like, how do you have proper nutrition in an environment like that?
I would say first and foremost, and this is something that I emphasize in my programs, first thing is to establish your nutrition foundation. And it's to know where you're at or where you're going, so your goals, right? Before you can just make decisions based off of what information you do or don't have. And so the foundation is first. So what does that mean? Knowing what your macronutrient needs are. Are you going to be getting your workouts in? Yes or no? Something called the BMR or RMR, basal metabolic rate, resting metabolic rate. That is the calories that your body burns at rest, just in the day, not doing anything to just operate and function. That's how many calories your body uses. And so that's kind of the starting point, if you will. From there, you can go up if you have, a fitness routine throughout the day, if you are, getting your those 10,000 steps in, right, that we've all heard about, if you have activity in the day, if you're trying to just maintain your weight, then you can consume the amount of calories that you've burned you doing those activities. However, if you are trying to lose weight, that BMR or that RMR, you should lower that number in order to try to lose some of that fat if you're not going to be very active, right? Because the weight that you're at, if you continue to consume that same amount of calories, you're still going to stay on that platform, that plateau. So if you consume less calories, then your body's going to burn that excess fat, and that's when you start losing weight. But then you also have to recalculate again. So it's a continuous cycle in order to attain your goals, whatever you're looking for, right? If you put on more muscle mass, well, then your BMR, your RMR is going to go up because muscle mass takes a lot of energy to exist and operate. So like earlier, whenever I said that I lost fat, but I gained muscle, I lost about 1.5 pounds of fat, but I gained 1.8, so almost 2 pounds of muscle. So my BMR increased by almost 50 calories a day just because I put on more muscle. So what does that mean for me? It means that I can maybe consume a little more calories throughout the day based off of what I set my goals at. So that was a lot. I know that was a lot. And that's not something that you need to think about on a daily basis or even like a regular basis. Just calculating your macros and knowing what your goal is. That's your foundation for your nutrition. It's like, okay, I know that this is how many calories I can eat to just stay where I'm at, to lose weight, or maybe to gain weight if you're in that position, which there are less people in that position. After that, so you figured out what your foundation is. After that, then you need to figure out, okay, how does my daily routine play a role in what my goals are? And that's when you start pre-planning. So planning is super important, especially as a pilot, right? Because, so say commercial airlines or even like corporate flying, right? You're flying from one destination to another. What's at your destination? What food's available to you? What are you bringing with you? How long are you going to be there? So pre-planning is a big deal for this because that can prevent you from consuming the calories maybe that you don't need to be consuming, overeating, over-consuming those calories, right? So planning ahead is going to be like stage 2, right? I know what my foundation is. Okay, now how do I make sure I stay stable in that foundation wherever I'm going and the kind of foods that I'm eating? I know a lot of people get overwhelmed with the thought of like having to track their calories, having to track their macros and looking at all this stuff. But I've heard this from like a couple of people. They just start developing bad relationships with food, right? And the process. That's not a stage that we want to get to, right? Some people can become like obsessive about what they're doing. I'll just like give a couple of examples here. Myself first. So while I'm running this kettlebell program, I am going to do a calorie deficit, but I'm only going to do a deficit of about 200 calories a day. So nothing super crazy. Someone who's more overweight, 300 to 500 calorie deficit is a window that's kind of recommended. But something I mention in my programs is that as aviators, if you put yourself in a calorie deficit that's significant, you're going to start feeling those effects on your energy levels, right? So what we don't want to do, and our cognition, our focus is not a priority for our body. So that's going to be one of the first things to go if you put yourself at a significant calorie deficit. And that's not what we want because we are flying aircraft and we have passengers, we have crews, right? So that's our focus and our cognition is not something we want to go out the window. So I recommend maybe not doing such a significant calorie deficit, maybe like the 200 to 300 calories instead. That will take you a little bit longer to reach your goals, if you have pretty significant goals. But would you rather be a safe pilot still? Or would you rather be just struggling significantly in and out of the aircraft? It will also help with maintaining your health more long-term too. If you A lot of people who tend to do like really big calorie deficits, those are individuals that tend to start doing like that roller coaster dieting, you know what I'm talking about? So like they'll just fast and eat like nothing for a certain period of time. It could be like weeks, even months or whatever sometimes. But then they just go right back into the habits that they just had previous to that. And so that is really messing with metabolism and with the body's ability to maintain consistency with weight, also with hormone development, hormone balance, all kinds of stuff. So if you don't put yourself in a huge calorie deficit, then you are kind of setting yourself up for better success and helping your body re-regulate and re-maintain consistency and overall balance with that. So planning, right? And not becoming super overwhelmed with the process. Knowing and understanding that it's going to take you time to reach your goals. You didn't gain all the weight that you've put on, right? You didn't get into this position that you're in a couple of days, even in a week, even in a few weeks. And understanding that your process is probably going to take longer than it took you to get to the point that you're at. So knowing that, hey, we're in this for the long haul. I'm not just in this for like 2, 3, 4 months, whatever. This is the rest of my life. And understanding that, I think can help take the pressure off just a little bit. That was the longest answer to a single question probably ever.
But it was packed full of information. I love it. And I just have to, yay. I was like biting my tongue going, yes, preach. Because I think you're also talking about something really important that we see. You talked about that roller coaster. People get really into something. You get really super motivated. You're like gung-ho. You're working out. You're eating. You're tracking. And so I've seen people maintain that, even myself, for 6 months. But inevitably there is that like crumble. Something happens in life and there's a big upset, and then we slide back into old patterns again. And there's another thing though that happens. It's almost like with us high performers, and yes, I include myself in that category, we know how to take on a challenge. And it's almost like I've seen it in myself and in my students that when we get to a certain level of physical health and wellness, there's almost a subtle form of self-sabotage to slide back a little bit, because then we can go back into sort of the diet culture of now I'm going to track, now I'm going to work out again. And it's very familiar for us to like know what to do with sort of feeling like we're not good enough with how we're eating and how we're moving. So then we get all gung-ho about a project again, we get to a certain level, and then we kind of slide back again because like we really like that feeling that we are something to be fixed, right? Our body and our nutrition is something that has to be fixed in a project, especially for women with diet culture. It's a huge thing. Like we know how to be on a diet. So I love what you're saying is instead of looking at it like that, it's this short term, I'm going to do a so many week plan. It's a so many week plan like one of yours, but with an eye towards this is the rest of my life. That's a huge mindset shift that I just want to like underline big time, because it's very easy to do a short-term project. It's much more fulfilling and useful to look at it as forever. So I really applaud you for doing that and just want to say, yay for that.
So I have a couple rapid fire questions for you, just based off of the things that you said. First and foremost, okay, so with somebody who is maybe participating in your program or doing whatever it is that they're doing and their weight is going up and down, for someone who doesn't know, how do you know if, hey, I gained 5 pounds? How do you know if that's muscle or if it's something else? You know, is there an easy way to be able to tell the difference?
Yeah. So there's a lot of smart scales that exist now that are pretty cheap. You can even like get some at home. There's some facilities. I'm in South Florida, so there's things everywhere here. Okay. And so like the gym I'm still a trainer at currently, we have an in-body scale. So I use that for my measurements, but you could just get a smart scale. Like it's $50 and they do a pretty good job. But that's a pretty easy way to identify that. Also an easy way is to identify is if while you're in your strength training routine, if you are lifting heavier weights, if you are doing more reps with those weights than you could before, like your workout's becoming easier, you probably put on muscle because you're stronger now, right? So that's an easy way to figure out if you've gotten stronger and you've gained muscles, that the workouts you were doing that were hard before are not anymore. Well, you got stronger. So you probably gained some muscle.
And I love the fact that you talked about calorie deficit and the effects, because I think that is certainly something that when somebody is looking at maybe some of the things they're not happy about themselves, the very first thing they're going to do is start to starve themselves, right? And I don't think pilots are any different than the general population for those
Right.
that may be thinking about that or have a negative body image. And I want to dig in a little deeper on the negative effects cognitively of that. If I start to go into too much of a deficit, what happens to my brain? What happens to my focus, my memory, my ability to learn if I'm in class or something like that? Like, what are the real significant negative effects? And then on the flip side, what are the things I can do to maybe improve those things? If I'm trying to look at nutrition, how do I enhance my memory, my cognition, my motor skills, those types of things?
Yeah. So calorie deficits, you're taking away energy that your body's used to getting. And so it's going to pull it from other sources inside of your body. The body will sense that deficit and be like, okay, so we need more energy. Where are we going to pull it from? And it's not going to ask the brain first necessarily, because it's be like, no, I need all these things in order to keep, like, do you want to keep operating? They're like, okay, your body's like, okay, never mind, we'll move on. And then it's like muscle mass. It's like, hey, muscle, are you using that energy? And it's like, yeah, man, like I'm trying to work here. And so then at some point in the process, it'll go to like the adipose tissue or like the stored fat and be like, hey, are you using that? It's like, no, I'm just chilling. I'm hanging out. It's like, all right, cool. Like, let me use you. And so your body's priority is to utilize the stored fat. However, for immediate source, right, your body's not just be like, I need energy, boom, fat. No, it's a whole process. Like, it will have to break down the fat over time. And that's why long-term, weeks, months of calorie deficit, you will lose fat. Short term though, if you're talking about like focus and memory and that kind of thing, it does take away your focus and your attention from your brain, because your body's gonna be like, I need to operate the organs, right? I need to operate the heart. And I also need to, like, right now I'm not prioritizing physically doing things. I'm just trying not to fall asleep currently. So that is why the brain kind of gets foggy and your attention starts to suffer. Those are some of the reasons whenever you're in that calorie deficit. And that's why I mentioned earlier that for pilots, probably not doing like that big significant calorie deficit, like 500 calories. You can try it out. Someone can always, try it out. And if you notice a significant decline in your cognitive abilities over the first few days or week or whatever, maybe you back off of that, give yourself an extra 200 calories a day, and then see how that feels. Because it's going to be a little different for everybody, of course. And if you hit that wall, know that it's unsafe for you as a pilot, and give yourself some grace, if you will, and maybe you increase this calorie back up just a little bit so you can still accomplish your goals eventually. But just know that in order to continue along with a safe career, that maybe this is where you're at right now is not such a significant calorie deficit, just so that your attention span doesn't take a hit.
So how do I make myself better? If I'm stressing out and I'm going to a new type rating and I'm about to spend a month of just intense learning and training and memory, what can I do to supercharge my sort of insides to accept that I'm going to have this big test that I got to take and I got to do well?
Yeah. The brain needs energy, of course, right? And things that help with foods in particular that help with focus are foods that are higher in omega-3s, like salmon, for example, or certain nuts like walnuts and stuff. Those omegas, omega-3 in particular, B vitamins, those provide energy to your brain as well. And there's an amino acid, L-thiocein, that is also linked to focus, sleep, helping manage stress levels, also with hormone balance. all these things, also fats, good fats, are huge in the regulation of your hormones. So keep that in mind as well. But also on that list is caffeine. So caffeine is a naturally occurring substance, of course, and it our brain absorbs it in a way that it actually blocks the it's like the sleep receptors. I can't think of what it's called right now, but in order to give you that energy, right, and to try to refocus your brain. Now, if you are deprived of sleep, right, if you are just absolutely taxed, then the caffeine's not going to make a huge difference in your ability, in your like reaction ability, or for your brain in particular. At that point, if you're like sleep deprived, you need to go take a nap. You need to go and actually get your sleep in, because that's how your body recovers mentally, physically, your tissues, everything. So some of those foods, also a long-term consistent diet of those kind of foods that are good for your brain. Those are what are overall going to improve your memory, your cognition, your focus, right? So you're studying for these tests and everything. If you are giving your body what it needs to begin with, right? Forget about just this window where you're studying for this test. If you've already given your body this stuff long term, you're already setting your brain up for success, for absorbing this information and retaining this information. Let's go back into sleep. So sleep deprivation is also huge in retaining memory. And so if you can't focus on something, you're not going to remember that necessarily. There's a book I'm reading, and it's called Why Do We Remember? In the book, he talks about how the brain, it's a computer, right? And so we have to teach the computer, if we're not giving it the nutrients it needs, if we're not actually paying attention and we have focus on what we're doing, we can't correlate other things that we've learned with the new thing we're trying to learn, then it's going to be a lot harder for us to memorize that, to store that information. So instead of trying to cram your brain with information and also cram your brain with good foods temporarily, we're in this for the long haul. It's a long haul process, right? But some of the things that can help in the meantime are, I hate to say it, caffeine, omega-3,
Yes.
B vitamins. Now, I'm not saying that the caffeine is going to help you remember this stuff, right? But it can help temporarily increase your focus, of course, if you're not like sleep deprived, right?
Lashae, don't give John any outs here at all. But I think it's so interesting what you say, because I know that if I'm really, truly tired, I can drink as much caffeine as you can give me,
matter.
and it makes zero difference at all. I will still face plant and be exhausted. But I love this idea that you're saying of pairing it with long-term good nutritional habits. I heard you say salmon, walnuts, getting your amino acids, your B vitamins, which I think are in like green leafy vegetables. I'm looking at you, John. But if you do that, it's like then you have this really great hardware. Your computer is like running. It's like the latest, MacBook Pro. It's like ready to go. And then any information you put in there, it's going to make your life so much easier. So much of what you're saying, it sounds like you put in a little bit of work daily on this, but you get this massive reward that you're getting more time and ease back in your life because you're not on the struggle bus to remember things or to run difficult operations. So it's like a little bit of investment is what I hear you say, gives you not only better flying, but also better health outcomes in the long term. So everyone just do what she says, including you, John. Mr. No vegetables.
You can't procrastinate and like cram study, right, for actually knowing the information and you being able to safely utilize the information, just like you can't like cram nutrients and hope that, my body's going to absorb all this and just use it properly and it's going to know exactly what to do and where to put me. No.
It's heartbreaking.
Dang.
Really
I told you it's going to burst some bubbles today.
I know. But to Geeta's point, one of the things that I really can appreciate is just how all of this stuff is connected, right? I mean, we touched on the fitness side. Obviously, we're talking about the nutritional side. Sleep came into it. And so it's almost like you can't have one without the other if you're truly looking for any kind of improvement or success.
Right. Yeah, they all link hand in hand. If you're tired, your fitness routine, you're not going to get the most out of your fitness routine. You're not going to be able to recover properly. If you're not eating properly, your sleep's going to be trash. So it all just flows together.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important note especially for us pilots, because we tend to burn things on both ends. I know I do. And, then you have that episode where you fly, in my case, to Brazil, and that's a 11-hour flight. And yes, you probably have 3 pilots on board or more, depending on who you work for. So you're getting little bits of sleep, but you're still pushing your body to a significant point. Yeah. And then everything else just kind of falls apart. And so knowing how to try to get that back or repair after those short-term just fractures, I think is important.
Yeah. And also post-flight, right? You've gone through this 11-hour flight to Brazil with intermediate sleeping, essentially. Your body, if you've, set yourself up physically and nutritionally beforehand, not just a couple days beforehand, but you're on a program, right? You're on a regimented, structured system. Your body's going to be able to recover a lot quicker and a lot easier had you not been working out previously on a program, eating the macros, the calories that's needed for you, right? And so you're just going to struggle a lot more. You get back and then you just go kind of right back into the bad habits that you were already in, you already been using. And so, just again, setting yourself up for success, pre, mid, and post flight, honestly, is what your health does.
And I think that that's important for pilots of all levels. I mean, it doesn't have to be a corporate pilot who flies around the world. It could be a flight instructor who's spending 12 hours in the pattern. I mean, I've been there, done that. And it's not a competition as to what you fly or where you go. Aviators are aviators. And I mean, student pilots, you guys have a lot of stress and you are trying to learn so much. You're absorbing a brand new skill, and all of this combines to just not just your overall health, but your ability to kind of, like Lashae said, to build yourself back up, because the engine noise, the vibration, it was really interesting to hear that you say it can create spine issues. I never thought of that, but I know that the noise is fatiguing, and any edge that we can get as pilots of any skill level, I think, is hugely important.
Yeah. So I actually have a flight snack and meal guide on my website. And so what I've done is I've broken down these super easy to bring with you snacks into the cockpit. I have them broke down to protein, your fats, and your carbs snacks. And then the last couple pages, I have some of those snacks, but also additional things that I've kind of built into small meals. If you can give yourself a little boost of energy, while you're flying, that can potentially help fight that degrade in focus and mental energy, while you're flying.
Early on in my training, I worked with a nutritionist because I was struggling with retaining information. I was also going through the last vestiges of going through menopause. So for all my ladies out there who've gone through that transition, talk about brain fog. The decline in estrogen really messes with your brain because there's a lot of estrogen receptors in the brain, and a common symptom is this brain fog. So I'm, trying to learn how to fly an airplane while experiencing a lot of brain fog and insomnia. Yeah. That was fun. But I worked with a nutritionist, and she said the same things that you're saying. Imagine that. But she said, hey, you need to bring foods with you, especially when you start training for the cross countries. And she goes, bring an egg salad sandwich on board. I was like, wait a minute, egg salad sandwich in that tiny little cabin.
Maybe not so much.
Maybe not so much. Maybe not with the tuna fish. But to your point, plan ahead of time. Are there supplements that play a role in all of this? Or would you rather see people just eating the whole foods?
Whole foods is always going to be key. The only reason you should supplement is if you are deficient in something, or you have an autoimmune disorder or something like that, where your body just physically can't maintain those certain levels, or maybe even absorb or break down properly the nutrients that you're eating. But ultimately, whole foods is going to be your key. And the reason being is companies are really good at marketing these days. And pretty much all supplements are not regulated by the FDA. So these companies can literally put whatever they want on these vitamin bottles, the supplement packages, all that kind of stuff. And there's these tiers that have been designed to help people understand where supplements kind of fall in line. And tier 1 is going to be protein powders, so like whey protein and casein protein, because those have been scientifically proven to work. I mean, it's just a source of protein. That's what it is. And the people who should utilize protein supplements are ones that just can't get enough out of their whole food diet. The next one is creatine. So creatine is like the second, right behind protein, most studied supplement on the market. And it's, oh my gosh, it's been studied like, I can't even give you a year. I want to say like the 70s, 80s, something like that. And there have been continuous studies even up to this year on creatine and what it provides. Those are basically the two that are in tier 1. Everything else kind of falls underneath that. Tier 2 is going to be potential benefits, for very specific kinds of people. Like those very specific kinds of people might see potential benefits from taking this very specific supplement. Most of their supplements fall in tier 3 or 4, and tier 3 is going to go into things that just simply don't have enough research to say they do or don't work. And then tier 4 is that it's proven that it does not work. And a lot of those vitamins fall in tiers 3 and tier 4. There are, because like tier 3, like a magnesium supplement, a zinc supplement, things that have been shown in some studies to potentially help with like sleep, for example. Or if someone's like iron deficient, taking an iron supplement, of course, like talk to your doctor about these things, right? But there's a significant variation in the ability for your body to break down and actually utilize what are inside these supplements, if those supplements you're purchasing even have the quantity of those vitamins and minerals that they're saying they have on the outside. And then tier 5 is like potentially harmful, can cause significant health issues or death. Like there's not hardly anything in tier 5.
One of the shows that I used to watch years ago was Big Bang Theory, if you've ever heard of it before.
Yeah.
There's a famous quote from that show where they're actually talking about supplements, and the main character, Sheldon, says something along the lines of, "Oh, you're having supplements." And then the guy goes, "Yeah, why?" And he goes, "Well, you're just, creating really expensive pee." And it sounds like that might be a little bit of what you're talking about, that because it's not coming from the food you're eating, you're really kind of just putting it in and sending it away instead of actually absorbing it.
Yeah. Even some like higher quality vitamins that you can potentially find, even those, if your body is going to absorb any of the nutrients that are in it, it's going to be a very negligible amount, maybe like 3% or something like that. It's something extremely small, because your body still has to like break down the capsule. Then it further breaks down the powder that's inside of it. If the powder is, what it says it is as advertised, it's going to break that down further, maybe into even like non-usable nutrition, because at that point your body's like, well, this isn't anything. I can't even use this. So yeah, it does get wasted. And if it does get absorbed at all, it's going to be very negligible.
Does it help if you pair it with a meal? Like, can you improve your ability to absorb it if you're eating at the same time that you're consuming the supplement?
What I would say is that your body is probably going to prioritize that food more, because it's going to have more of that nutrients in it, and it's going to have more variety of usable nutrients in it. For the all the absorption happens in your small intestine. The stomach's going to break it down, send it to the small intestine, which is going to further break it down and then absorb it. And at that point, that little capsule is going to be pretty insignificant.
Right.
But But I will say that there are certain things like the omega fats that help promote absorption of a lot of vitamins and minerals because so there's fat soluble and there's water soluble vitamins, right? And like even in the foods that we're eating. So there are certain things that our body needs paired together in order to absorb those nutrients. So being hydrated and making sure that you're eating that balanced diet, that you have those good fats in it, is going to be huge for your body's ability to absorb and utilize those nutrients because they need to bind together. They have to use each other in order for your body to get the most out of those nutrients you are eating. Prioritize proteins, plan ahead. If you're tracking your calories, right? If you're using an app or just a website, whatever, it's going to tell you what you're deficient in. So it's like, hey, you're going to need more carbs, or you're going to need more fats, or you're over on your fats, right? Then you already know this is how I kind of need to change the foods that I'm eating in order to meet my goals, my nutritional goals. So tracking your calories also takes some of the work out of feeling like you're overwhelmed with doing this pre-planning, because it's like, all right, I know I need more protein. This is a protein source. All right, I know I need more fibrous carbs. This is a fibrous carb source. So you don't have to guess. You know, it takes that tracking your calories takes the guessing work out of your planning. So I think those things. If you're an airline pilot or just even a frequent traveler like myself, I built a international and domestic U.S. airport restaurant guide, and it's also on my website. So I researched every single airport, international, domestic, in the U.S., and I chose the restaurants with like 3 to 4 meal options from each restaurant in all the terminals that I feel like offer the best nutrient dense foods for pilots traveling through airports. Those are my recommendations. Like, this is what I would eat. So that will also help take some guesswork out of things as well.
Is there a rule that I can follow to try to find something virtually anywhere that maybe is, fitting the body's needs the best for a performance outcome?
Well, John, I'm so glad you asked. I do have a free guide on my website too. My website's milehighhealthclub.life, all right, because it's a lifestyle. So the free guide, it's called Nutrition, Eat for Pilot Performance. And in there I explain portion sizes, some good habits to adopt, also, again, how to calculate your macros, but also tips on choosing foods, how the foods are prepped, right? So I've got a chart in there. It's like, obviously, avoid fried foods. Okay. That's that's number one. But then prioritizing like chicken. What are the various ways chicken can be cooked? It can be grilled, poached, blackened, baked, all those things. And so on that chart, I explain what those cooking methods mean. And I just kind of have them listed in priority wise of, if you're at this random restaurant in this random area, then if they have these foods available to you based off like the kinds of foods they have, this is how you should choose those foods. And I just kind of do that educational process of like identifying what's going to be the healthiest route for you to go whenever you are choosing those foods or those random places you find yourself at. There are answers for you. You don't have to do this like whole guessing game, right? There's so many resources these days. I'm actually right now I'm building a aviator health course for pilots and flight crews. And so it's going to be about like maybe a 5 to 7 hour course on like aviator health. And a lot of the things we talked about today, actually all the things we talked about today are going to be in there, some things more in depth, but then a ton of other topics as well.
That's an excellent resource, and I think it's truly needed. For myself, for all the funny things we've said, I really could benefit from that. Just as a general, health lifestyle type of thing, it's very easy to fall into bad habits on the road, whether it be lack of exercise, lack of sleep, lack of nutrition, eating things you're not supposed to. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't fall into all of those things, and I think a lot of my peers do too. Even for those of us that do try to, do our best in some of the healthier things. My last question before I kind of hit you with a little bit of a lightning round. For somebody who's trying to kind of start on this path, whether it's the diet, the nutrition thing, let's say they have some outstanding health issues, and one of the largest concerns amongst aviators, aging aviators to be specific, are things like high cholesterol, potential pre or even full blown diabetes, high blood pressure. Is there something that they can do outside of the obvious things that we already talked about that would be a benefit to them as they just adjust themselves into something more like a regimented system like you have?
Yeah. So things I've already started doing and that I will have available throughout my course, as well as interviews with health professionals within aviation. So AMEs, for example. And one of my interviews with first AME, Dylan Caldwell down here, I asked him the same question. And because I first asked him, I was like, what's the most severe, significant health issue you see among pilots? And he said, hypertension, high blood pressure, hands down. And I was like, it was like, just like the rest of society, right? And I was like, okay, so like straightforward, what's the solution to that? He's like, diet and exercise. Your diet and exercise. Now, you're in kind of a predicament, if you will, right? In a health predicament, because you're in a stage at which if you go too hard, too soon, too quickly, it could be more detrimental, right? Because you're not conditioned, you're not in a physical capacity in order to do, some of these workouts, like HIIT workouts, for example, right? Don't go try to send yourself on a 3 to 5 mile run when you haven't done so in years, okay? You're going to overwork that heart muscle, right? It's going to get sent into overdrive potentially. So you have to start smaller. Now, that's to also say, don't go too easy on yourself either, and understanding the difference between working a muscle body and you're feeling the effects of that work on the muscle body versus actually being in pain. People who are struggling with hypertension or high blood pressure, endurance strength training is going to be a very good way to help start getting that under control. And hopefully at some point, I'm not a doctor, okay? I've never claimed to be, but help to get that under control and get you off the meds and get you to a point. Because if you are on hypertension meds, in order to get your medical slip, you have to have been off those medications for at least 30 days. So before you can start flying in. That's an FAA standard. And FAA standard is actually more for hypertension. Their threshold is much higher than what the FDA states as like type 2 high blood pressure. So it's like the FAA is actually being lax in that category. So when they're like, all right, a month off the meds, like you're already health-wise in a pretty bad situation for your heart. So even if you're someone that's like, I don't like to exercise, well, it could potentially be the thing that actually saves your life. All right. If you value your life, maybe do something that is a little uncomfortable for you for a little bit. So it's a process that you can learn to enjoy. And, but it's also when you start seeing progress, it excites you. And so it's something that you grow to love.
Yeah. I have so many questions, and I could sit here and ask you all of these things for the next hour or so. But real quick, and I didn't tell you we were going to do this, but I think that there's just a couple short burst questions I'd love to ask you in kind of a lightning round-esque. Let's see if we can just hit a couple things. So, strategic snacking, yes or no? Is it good?
Absolutely.
Excellent. And it does it improve your mental focus and clarity?
Yes.
All
Snacking
right.
on the right things. Yes.
Best couple, let's say 2. What are your 2 best exercises to do on the road when you have no exercise equipment?
No exercise equipment. Okay. Everyone's going to hate this answer. Burpees is one of them.
I knew it.
Honestly, it's a full body. Okay. It's a full body burner. Okay. You could do no or low impact burpees. I actually have a low impact burpee movement in my functional movement program, like day 1. And the other thing.
Don't say lunges. Gosh. Don't say lunges.
I'm a big fan of compound movements. I love lunges, but I'm a big fan of compound movements. Like if I had to choose 2, I'd be doing full body compound movements. Oh my gosh. That's a tough one though. I do like legs. So it's either going to be lunges or push-ups. Yeah.
Okay. Push-ups.
Lunges or push-ups.
Not mountain climbers. Okay. That's good. I don't like those either.
Yeah, lunges or push-ups.
Can you be healthy with just nutrition or just exercise?
No.
So you need them.
You need both. If you want longevity, if you want life longevity, and you want to try to prevent yourself from becoming decrepit sooner rather than later, you need both.
My rapid fire question is, how can we convince John to eat vegetables? And I'm actually being serious, Yeah.
Like, so
for people who do not like them, they're fibrous, they're this, they're that. Like, what do you do with that? Because people just won't eat them.
Yeah. Pick the ones, that you can tolerate the most, and then figure out a way of cooking it in a good way. So like for me, I really like grilled vegetables. Okay. Love the grilled vegetables. Also, I gotta cough, like slight tangent here, but like seasoning's not the enemy. Okay. Seasoning makes things taste good. And what does that mean? So you've probably heard a lot of like the fad diets and stuff. They're like, don't use seasoning, blah, blah. And a lot of people get in their heads that the reason is because it's cutting out calories. Most seasonings have 0 calorie. Almost every seasoning has 0 calories, unless you're buying something that has like an absurd amount of like sodium in it with like some other stuff. And it makes it taste good. But those like fad diets and stuff are like, don't season things. It's because it's making the food less palatable. So you're taking that flavor out. And so what that ends up doing is we don't consume as much of that food if it doesn't taste as good. So then you're not over consuming those calories. Eating those kinds of things with that kind of flavor on them will help increase the fibrous carbs you're getting, which is the kind of carbs you do want in your diet, is fibrous carbs. I can or I cannot go down that rabbit hole. But if you're struggling with getting fiber into your diet, choosing those vegetables that are higher in fiber, or like whole wheats, those are going to be the ways to do it. And seasoning those vegetables, it can be the way to go if you're struggling with that.
All right, John, we got a challenge for you: some Brussels sprouts with a little
air
fancy
fry. Air fry those bad boys.
They're amazing.
Magic. Are you kidding me?
So good. They're like crunchy, crispy little, they're not like potato chips, but they have that kind of mouthfeel. One thing my husband does is he roasts vegetables absolutely, onions and carrots and peppers. And then he puts them in a food processor until it's almost like a slurry. Then he adds that when he makes chili. So there's like all these hidden vegetables. No one ever even knows they're getting like 5 pounds of vegetables in the chili, but it gives it this great body, and you get the sweetness and the bitter of the vegetable along with the salty and the heat of the meat. And it's a really nice way. Instead of eating this pile, usually people go like, I don't like vegetables. It's like, it's because you're eating steamed broccoli with nothing on it. Like, no wonder you hate them.
Yeah, that's gross. Absolutely
it's
not.
Totally gross. Who wants that? Or raw broccoli.
I'm going to take that sound clip. Yeah, vegetables. It's gross.
Yes, make that as the clip.
So anyways, Lashae, I cannot thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate everything that you've educated us on and taken the time to do so. So to really summarize your program, we have Mile High Health Club. Yes. We have at current existence, we have 4 nutritional programs. We have 4 and counting exercise programs. most effectively used together. And your website seems like an amazing place because for pilots that are listening, there are guides for eating on the road. There are guides for restaurants on the road. There are guides for things to pick when you're at a restaurant that maybe might not be on the list, but you didn't have a choice, so it's not your fault.
Yes. milehighhealthclub.life. My email's also on there. It's MHHC, Mike Hotel Hotel Charlie, at milehighhealthclub.life. And if pilots do come across restaurants that are at airports and they're like, I wonder if maybe, if they're not in the airport guide, they can always shoot it my way. I'll look into it and then I'll give my opinion on it.
That's awesome. And just having a resource out there for pilots who, you are one of us, right? You've done this before and you know what it's like. So it's not just talking to somebody who is kind of in the health environment and that's all they've ever known. You understand the struggles that active pilots, or maybe need to be more active pilots, fall victim to. So again, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate your time, and the information is so incredible. So again, thank you.
This has been awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Our pleasure. I really loved that interview. I feel like it was packed with so much, but I wanted to break down a couple of key takeaways and really highlight them because I think both her honesty and her practical approach really bears kind of underscoring. And the first one is about this close connection between nutrition, exercise, and sleep, which John and I, you've talked about a lot. When we do these episodes, we're seeing all of these things constantly interwoven, no matter if we're talking to an aviator, a psychiatrist, a nutritionist, everything that they're saying interweaves with one another. And these three pillars of nutrition, exercise, and sleep work together. So if one of those pillars slips, it can impact everything from your focus, your reaction time. And it's been a really important thing, I think, for me to really underscore that we don't get away with our bad habits for too long because everything is so connected. So I think if someone has like one of these pillars, nutrition, exercise, and sleep that you're weak on, consider this kind of like your call to action, that if you buoy that one and lift it up a little bit, make it stronger, that then your nutrition and exercise, if those are your other pillars, they will become stronger as well. So consider this a call to action to identify your weak areas and maybe start giving it a little bit of love.
Yeah. And it doesn't all have to happen overnight. I mean, it can be baby steps. So even if it's just one of the three and saying, well, maybe I'll eat my vegetables, or maybe I'll go to bed a half hour earlier than I normally do. I think that's all a step in the right direction. So it's no pressure to be perfect. It's no pressure to make sure that you hit everything all at once just to be happy. It's one little step in the right direction leads to bigger steps in the future.
Absolutely.
She also called out some health myths that float around aviation, like loading up on caffeine and skipping meals, that whole calorie deficit thing that she talked about. Those things that might keep you awake, but it won't keep you sharp. She also touched on how nutrition impacts the brain function and sleep, and how skipping meals or extreme dieting can literally cloud your thinking. Not ideal for when you're flying. And I know that I used to work for a job where we would have 14-hour days. And for the longest time, they didn't provide us with crew meals. So I had my break in case of emergency peanut butter and jelly that I brought with me. And well, why did I do that? Because they don't go bad and they don't need to be refrigerated. So yes, I eat like a child, but the sandwich will last the entire week. So that was important. But I can absolutely tell you that the ability to perform at your best in the beginning of the day versus at the end of the day was significantly different. So it definitely is an important thing to consider.
I absolutely love that you carry a PB&J. It is a classic thing. And it's got proteins, it's got fats. I don't know if jelly counts as a fruit, but let's count it as a fruit. If you use a healthy bread, there is nothing better than that. Because like you said, that can stay in that flight bag and get squished and whatever, and it's still going to be eatable. So is that a word, eatable? You know what I mean. But I think you're making an important point here that these habits, it's really easy that we can fall into that, like, it's good enough zone. Like, I get enough sleep. I get just enough food. And we kind of like normalize feeling less than we could actually be feeling, right? Like we start to sort of erode our performance and we get used to that being sort of like the new status quo. And then it erodes a little, our sleep erodes a little bit more. Maybe we're not as sharp, but then we just kind of get used to it. It's like that frog boiling in water slowly scenario. I love about how she's talking about this, that these strategies are your life. They're not temporary strategies. So if you're going to make that change that you just said, John, that like get to bed a little bit earlier, I'd even advocate 10 minutes earlier, not even half an hour at first. You make these small incremental changes, thinking about that you have your lifetime to make the shift. You do not have to make the shift today or tomorrow. You have a lifetime to accrue small little habits that will make that bar a little bit higher. So you get out of that, like it's a good enough kind of functioning and gradually move it towards the I'm feeling the best that I possibly can today.
Well, and it's also important to emphasize the idea that it's not going to change immediately either. So you can make a big step, and even that isn't going to give you immediate results. So to your point and to Lashae's point, you're playing the long game. So that's where the results come into.
Absolutely. So many of my students, particularly in therapeutic yoga, they'll do yoga for a few weeks and they'll notice definitely a difference after the classes themselves, but they will often get frustrated and sort of fall off of doing their meditation or their yoga or whatever practice they're doing because they want more results more quickly. And sometimes you have to think, man, it took you a long time to get into your nutrition and lifestyle habits. It can take you twice as long to sort of build back up out of it. So give yourself the grace to just say, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to make these small changes. I'll assess the results months from now. You will notice differences right away, but if you just let yourself not rush, not hurry, it will all get accomplished. And for me as an educator, I wish that more of what Lashae is talking about was covered in flight training. I am studying for that first FAA written. And just yesterday, I was going over all the different types of hypoxia. My brain was like trying to read the anemic hypoxia, the hypoxic hypoxia, and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, which is fantastic. We would like to know how oxygen is taken up by our bloodstream and sent to our muscles and our brain. Important. However, the whole time I was thinking of what Lashae was talking about. And I'm thinking if you have inadequate nutrition and inadequate exercise, your body is already functioning suboptimally. So even if you have adequate oxygen or you're breathing supplemental oxygen, your body is not primed then to take that oxygen up. So I kind of wish that this stuff was part of the private pilot certificate and kind of like baked into aviation culture, which I know is why we have the podcast, but we're just a podcast. I wish it was really highlighted that this is important. You are the machine that flies the machine.
I mean, here I am thinking about those guys that just climbed Everest in like 7 days, and my brain goes to their trick was to basically huff argon gas. Maybe we should just start doing that.
Always one for the shortcut, my co-host. Oh my goodness.
So for traveling pilots out there, I think the biggest thing that I know that I'm going to use moving forward is on her website, milehighhealth.life. There's all kinds of guides on there. She's got guides to restaurants at airports. She has guides to what to eat at a restaurant that you find yourself just randomly at, you know, what to look for, what might be a healthy thing to choose, or just in a way to kind of integrate that into your traveling restaurant life. And so there's a ton of resources on there. Check it out. I think you'll find some use for it. And yeah, I know I'm going to try it.
So if I had to summarize this interview with kind of one thing, it would be that small, consistent nutrition and fitness habits are the key to staying sharp and resilient in the cockpit. We're talking about dump the quick fix and make these sustainable choices over a long period of time. It's kind of nice. Takes the pressure off of needing to do it all today. So if you are a pilot and you can relate to any of these struggles of like eating on the road or keeping up your fitness when you're in this odd lifestyle that we're sedentary, but yet we're also moving incredibly fast. We would love to hear from you, especially if you found things that you really like that are working for you. We'd love to hear that. Or if there's a topic around this that you're really struggling with and that you'd like us or Lashae to dig into a little deeper, we'd really love to hear that, because this podcast is for you guys. We're looking at helping us all be more competent, safe, and proficient and healthy aviators. So just drop us an email at calmcockpit@gmail.com.
We'll link the website for Lashae and all of the social media content in the show notes. So make sure that you are checking that out if you want a quick click to all of that information. And make sure you leave us a 5-star review, or even any kind of review, but preferably a 5-star review. It helps get us off the ground. It helps get us found in the algorithm that is the internet. So we appreciate that. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Calm Cockpit Podcast. And until next time, fly smarter
and stress less.
Airbus Air 1 departure is Airbus 321. Traffic holding crossing runway 33 left 3 lane.